a man you know so very well, Tomás Sercovich, CEO of Business in the Community Ireland.
Good morning. It's great to be back. Thank you very much for making the time. I understand there's 101 events simultaneously happening this week and the next one and the last one, so it's fantastic that you have made the time to join us. The first thing I want to do is first and foremost pay tribute to you for the leadership, the resilience that you have shown over the last 2 and more years of this very difficult pandemic. You have definitely shown the best that business can do in terms of looking after your staff, first and foremost, but also your communities, your customers and your suppliers. I think definitely business has shown a great response, and that's something that I hope when you get a chance to rest, you can feel very proud of that. So as Brona said, we have a very significant piece of research that I'll be delighted to share with you. But before that, I want to take a moment to update you on 3 key aspects of the work of business in the community. First and foremost, and the slide is already there behind me, it's the Business Working Responsibly mark. As you know, it's Ireland's most prominent third-party verified standard on sustainability and ESG. This year we introduced a more rigorous process, which I'm sure some of you are not thanking us for that, but it's very much about keeping the expectations and the requirements in line with what's best in class and what those requirements are going to be. And also we introduced a new way of announcing those companies that are certified and recertified, and we're doing it on an ongoing basis as the companies get certified, and not in a big way as we used to do it here every year. However, 4 companies have already gone through the mark, and I want to name them because some of you are here this morning, so I would like to give a shout out to those 4 companies. First one is Janssen. Second one is Accenture, third one is Veolia, and the 4th one is EirGrid. So congratulations to all of those. Secondly, I want to talk to you about collective action, which is a key element of our strategy and will be part of the conversation later today. As you know, we have 2 collective action initiatives. The first one is Elevate, which is our campaign on inclusive workplaces. And I'm delighted to say that we're now at 57 signatories who altogether represent 140,000 employees. And our most recent members to join, and I'm delighted to name them this morning, are Ampost, Bassaran, ESW, Servier, and Cisco. So delighted to have them on board. I know some of you are in the room, which is fantastic. Next, low carbon, and in the week we're in, Niall Brown was wondering why we're not in Egypt this morning as opposed to here in Dublin. The low carbon pledge campaign continues to grow, and I am delighted that we're now at 71 signatories, with Matheson being the last organization to join. And please do watch this space because our campaign is going to continue to grow, and I'm delighted that our 2 co-chairs are here this morning, same as with our Elevate campaign. Next year, we're going to be partnering again with PwC on what will be our 5th annual report, and the focus is going to be on collective emissions, because that's where the expectation is in terms of looking how you're advancing that agenda. Okay. Without a doubt, if there's any of your companies that haven't signed up to those pledges, please do talk to us. There are plenty of us in the room this morning, and we want to make sure that you sign up. Third element and last one, I want to talk about our EPIC program, because that is and if you were looking at the slides there, before we sat down, there was some display of some of the work we do on marginalized employment and educational disadvantage. Our EPIC program is our refugee and asylum seeker program, and it was facing a significant cliff edge in terms of the funding. And we're facing the closure of the program, but we're very lucky that after reaching out to some of you, 4 of our member companies, and you see them there, they came on board and they allowed us to keep the program running. The EPIC program has supported more than 9,000 people since its existence, and looking now at what's happening in Ukraine and the newly arrived refugees, it's just put on sharp focus the need there is for initiatives like this. So I want to take a moment to sincerely acknowledge Cormac Shields and Declan Doyle in Bidvest Noonan, Kevin Thompson in RSA Insurance, Harry Goddard in Deloitte, and Adele Murphy, now with Yahoo, but at the time with Verizon, who allowed us to access a grant from the Verizon Foundation, and also our partners in the Community Foundation for Ireland who made that happen, which is very, very significant. So thank you for that. Now, let's now talk about the research, because that's what you're here to see. So this is a piece of research that we wanted to develop in order to understand where companies in Ireland are in relation to sustainability and ESG, because every time we talk to you, you tell us you're incredibly mature. So we wanted to see where exactly you are, and also understand what roadmaps we need to put in place. What are the levers that are going to make the transformation go even faster? Because we know we have to go faster. So firstly, let me give a thank you, because the research that we launched today was sponsored by these 9 companies, and I again want to sincerely acknowledge Abbott, BT, Gas Networks Ireland, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, KBC Bank, Musgrave, Paramount TSB, and Veolia for coming together. They not only provided the funding, but also a lot of the direction and the orientation of what we're trying to do. So what's behind this study? There is a quantitative survey. Many of you participated on the online survey, so thank you for that. Firstly. Secondly, we conducted expert interviews, and some of you are here in the room who also participate in that, so thank you. And finally, we conducted 3 co-creation sessions where more than 60 CEOs, practitioners, and future leaders from your organizations gave us the input as to the framework that I'm going to share with you today. So let's go into the figures. I'm sure you'll be interested to see some of them. So I'm just going to talk about some dimensions, and there's plenty more to see in the study. There's a QR code on your tables, and you can download the report. So most of you have told us that you have targets on ESG, which are publicly reported, so that's great. 20 years ago, we were told that sustainability or CSR wasn't measured, therefore not managed. That's not the case anymore, so well done on that. But interestingly, only half of the companies are telling us that they're linking executive remuneration with ESG performance. So a first gap to keep an eye on, what is it that you're measuring, and how is your remuneration being calculated, and what more needs to be done in terms of bringing more ESG into executive remuneration. So that's perhaps one challenge you might want to reflect on. Secondly, 70% of businesses have third-party verified standards on ESG, which is obviously fantastic, and it's great to see that, given the accusations that businesses are faced of greenwashing and the lack of trust in general there is in business. And 2/3 of you told us that you give weighting to ESG in procurement, but only 1/3 could confirm that they had recently had at least one supplier selected on ESG criteria. So again, a bit of a gap in terms of having those processes for looking at ESG in your procurement, but how are you making procurement decisions? Is that influencing or not? What's defining sustainability or ESG continues to evolve. So we asked you about transparency of pay and rewards. Less than 1/3 considered that it was part of your definition or your focus on ESG, and even less, only 16% believed that disclosing your tax approach was part of your ESG. Yet we know that some of the expectations or the complaints or the issues that are raised around business are around topics like this. So I think there's definitely a way to go. And the final fact that I'll share with you, there's plenty more, is around a note of caution. So 2/3 again here believed that without proper support, sustainability might have to go into the back burner. I wonder if that's the case. Could ESG become secondary when other considerations take place, or is it here to stay? So some results to take some time and digest. The fundamental question that we were asking ourselves is there on your screen. How are we going to really accelerate change over the next decade? Because that's where the action really needs to happen. And I don't need to tell you that the business as usual scenarios that you're all used to are not working. They're not working for you as a business, but they're not working for the planet or for society. What we've done is we've looked at 3 key areas where business needs to provide a response. I don't think I'm surprising you with what those are. It's a zero emissions planet, it is nature positive, and it's a just society. Now, we're presenting them to you as 3 separate dimensions, but at the end of the day, you know they're incredibly interdependent and interconnected, and the response that is needed is absolutely holistic. So, I'll just give a very quick flavor of what some of these topics are, but I think you know really well what is happening. So one of the headlines from COP this week, from pledges to progress. So it's great to have commitments, but where is the action? Where are the results? Just to give you a sense, a recent UK survey, only half of business decarbonization commitments are aligned with 1.5 degrees. So there's definitely a way to go. And in terms of interim targets, the sense is that business are not delivering enough in terms of how they're going to reach. Great to have those net zero or 2050 ambitions, but what are the interim targets that are going to get you there? Are you on track? Radical collaboration sounds like a really nice fancy word, but at the end of the day, it's about how you're going to scale up solutions across your sectors. And the question is, are we ready for that? Are we good at collaborating across our sectors, or is something we need to do more? Nature perhaps is an area that we understand less and that we articulate less, and that came up pretty much on the survey. And it is definitely something we just need to keep an eye on. Just listening at survey statistic from the National Parks and Wildlife Service, 91% of protected habitats in this country are in poor or inadequate condition, and more than 50% are declining. Another survey, up to 1/4 of the value of the world's largest food and agriculture companies, which is currently worth over $2 trillion, could be lost to environmental degradation by 2030. So the challenge is stark. It's great to see that consensus around how to define nature positive, how to measure nature, and how to set targets on nature are going to come on stream very soon. And we also are expecting to see, coming from the COP in Montreal, the other COP, requirements around disclosure on nature. And I think this is going to be a very exciting part of the business response. And a just society. And this is a very broad and all-catching dimension, but it's probably the most complex one and the one we need to do more. Let me give you an example. Based on the SRI data that was released only last month, 1/3 of the 625,000 people living below the poverty line were at work. This is from last year. Most of them are part-time employed. They tend to be lone parents, newly arrived to Ireland, and are mainly women. They are renters living in poor insulated homes and facing growing cost of living. They tend to save less money and have poorer health. I think you know what I'm talking about. The question is there any chance that any of those 220,000 people are employed in your companies or in your supply base? And the question is, what is it that you can do about that inequality, and how that inequality in the long term is going to be a challenge for your own business? The notion that business cannot succeed if societies fail is now as important as ever before. So, I've depressed you enough, I hope, but I think this is the sense that we're getting, and apologies for that. Let's see in the next 4 minutes, how do we accelerate the change? So in the research and in the conversations we had, and let me tell you, we had 22 future leaders coming to our final co-creation session, and we were blown away. And I'll advance one of my conclusions from today. There's plenty of activists within your organizations, and my call for you is to make sure that you are igniting the spark of those activists that are in your organization. Never mind yourselves here, you're activists as well. But I'll come back to that. So, 3 areas, you can see them there on the screen. It's about leadership, it's about defining what value is, and it's also about transparency and trust. So if I talk for a minute around leadership, And this is a conversation that came up a lot. That's a very busy slide, but at the end of the day, let me give you a flavor of some of the questions that I want to leave you with, as Ronan was saying, see if there's any takeaways from that. Are you listening to different voices, sometimes the uncomfortable ones? Do you engage the next generation in this conversation? Are they influencing the C-suite? Do you engage with activists and those who oppose your views, even those that glue themselves to paintings these days? How do we shift from short to long-term thinking when at the end of the day you have to deliver quarterly results, or when your success is marked by a daily trading update call? How are you going to define your legacy as a CEO? What are you going to leave behind when you leave your organizations? What do you want to be remembered for as a leader? One of the future leaders told us the culture has to change. So how are we going to change the culture? What sort of behaviors do we need to develop? And how are you going to lead by your own example in that new culture of sustainability? And finally, how do you engage with other leaders in what our research, and I'm sure the panel later will discuss, our communities of courage? How do you arm yourself with others to understand the challenge that's ahead of you? And clearly it's not easy. Measuring value of your business. So how do you measure that? Is it EBITDA? Is it your turnover? We're talking about redefining capitalism. Sounds a bit, don't call me a communist, please, but it sounds like a bit from a message from the 70s, but that is what the conversation is all about. So in our research, we looked at a broad spectrum of viewpoints, from the profit pragmatist to the degrowth enthusiast. I'm not going to label you because I'm sure you can see yourselves reflected in one or more of those. But again, let me tell you, what is it that we're thinking about and where we want the conversation to be going? So does your company purpose align with what you are defining and measuring and as the value of your organization, of your business? This year we spoke about cap on profit. Should we put caps on profit when there are windfall gains? Is this an extraordinary thing of this year? Is this here to stay? Would investors be happy to see organizations reaching a certain level of profit and then the rest being ring-fenced perhaps for sustainability or ESG, or am I totally a lunatic? Can we shift your conversations on ESG from cost into investment and into R&D, or is that still seen as the things we do when we have to spend money? And finally, is it time to introduce the Chief Value Officer into your C-suite? Do we need to look at new and different metrics of what the overall value of your organization is and provides to the economy as well to society and the environment? And finally, transparency. And again, this is a key fundamental area. So we spoke about radical transparency. What does that mean? Could we use our phones now that we have them and at all time and see in real time your ESG impacts? Could we see your ESG performance? Could we see carbon and water footprinting in the products that we're buying? Could we see modern slavery or child labor advisories in products and services we're acquiring or in investment products? Is that where we are going to convince stakeholders outside this room who are probably thinking that business is not doing enough, that there is a journey to go, and that's where you're going? Are we speaking a language we all understand? And here am I standing in front of you using a load of acronyms. Is that how we're going to engage people in this conversation is the question. Integrated disclosure and integrated reporting, big trends, and I'm sure you're all thinking about that EU directive and what's going to happen. At the end of the day, it's not about producing those two reports. It's about disclosure that interlinks. So how can you explain your increased sales turnover, for example, due to employee engagement and satisfaction and well-being? When do those metrics talk to each other? And the final idea is about reporting forward. So instead of just telling us what you did last year, how can we look at to see if you're on track on some of the key targets that you have? So I'm out of time, so I better bring this to a close. I have to do it with a positive tone because it's early in the morning and the room is dark and you need to go out with something. This is what the survey told us. Everybody believes that Ireland could be amazing, could be the leader in this area. So what are we waiting to do it would be my question. Thank you very much.